In the previous video, I have seen how to compute the discovery time and finish time of a node when you apply DFS. In this video, we'll mainly focus on looking at two theorems, which exploits the property of the finish times of the vertices. So let's quickly recap the DFS algorithm. So we will look at the recursive DFS because that's easy to understand. So we initialize the discovery time, we initialize finish time, the pi function and the v values. So then we had set the count to be 1. So then we looked at every node, and if it is not yet visited, we set the pi function and call the DFS from this particular vertex. So when we come to a node, so we set the values of the flag of that to be true, set the discovery time, then you look at all the adjacent vertices of it. So if you look at v, u comma v, if v is not yet visited, then set the pi function of v to be u, and then call the DFS function recursively from v. So once you once you finish visiting all the adjacent vertices of u, then you set the discovery time of u. So we had this example where I started with 0, I set the discovery time as 1, then I looked at the adjacent vertex of it, which is 1, so I set the discovery time of 1 as 2, then I went from 1 to 3, set the discovery time of 3 to be 3. From 3 I could not go anywhere because the adjacent list of 3 is empty. So I finished visiting, set the finish time, and then backtrack. I came from 1. I look at the other adjacent vertex of 1. So set the discovery time of this to be 5. From 2 I went to 4. Set the discovery time of 4 to be 6. Now there are two adjacent vertices of it. Both of them have been already visited. So I finish visiting everything which is reachable from 4, set the discovery time as 4, and then set the discovery time of 2 as 8. Everything from 2 has been visited now. We come back to 1. So both the adjacent vertices of 1 has been visited. So I come back to 0 after setting the finish time of 1 to be 9. When I come to 1, both the adjacent vertices of 1 has been visited. So I set the finish time of 0 to be 10. So this is the example that we have seen in the previous class. So what you're going to study is that we have this nice discovery time and finish time. We will look at some property of these values. So recall that the discovery times take n distinct values, the finish times also takes n distinct values, because every time when you set a counter to either d or f, the counter increases by 1. So you can't assign the same value to two nodes. So all the nodes will be associated with two distinct values. So if you look at the collection of all discovery times and finish times, so what you basically get is two n distinct values. But every node will be associated with an interval which is df discovery time and then followed by the finish time. So we look at some of the properties of these intervals. So given two nodes u and v, such that the u is discovered before the vertex v, then one of the following two conditions should happen. The first condition says that you discovered u, you finish visiting all the nodes which are reachable from this particular vertex u, and then you visited v, then you finished vertex v. Or what other thing can happen is that so you discovered u, then you discovered v, then you visited all the nodes which are reachable from v, and then you finish visiting v, and then you finish visiting u. So these are the only two things that can happen. So if these two, since u was discovered before v, so the interval u should always come to the left. So the only other option is that so u overlaps with the interval of v, but the claim is that such a condition cannot happen. It's easy to, in terms of look in terms of the iterative version of the DFS, because in this case what we are saying is that you push V, U, then you pop U, then you pushed V, and then you popped U. So in this case you pushed U and then you pushed V. So since V is pushed, you are supposed to pop V out and then you pop U out. So in this case what you are trying to do is that you push U out, push U, then you push V, then you cannot pop U out of the stack before you pop V out of the stack. Okay. So once you start visiting all the vertices of U, if the recursion calls V, then you have to finish visiting all the vertices which are reachable from V before you finish all the backtrack and finish all the vertices which are reachable from U. In other words, if you push U and then you push V, then you have to necessarily pop V out before you pop U. So in this case you pushed U, pop U, and then pushed V and popped V. In this case you pushed U, pushed V, pop V and pop U. These are the only two things that can happen. Let's look at in the example. So the interval 3, 4 is completely inside 1, 10. So you started with U, you pushed U, then you push several things. You pushed 3, you popped 3. That is the time when you finish your discovery time. Then you visited everything which is reachable from 0 and then you finish 0. So the 3, 4 is completely outside the interval 5, 8. So you discovered 3, so there was nothing to visit from 3, so the interval is 3, 4. After that you went and discovered 2, and then you visited everything which is reachable from 2, and then you finished set the finish time, right? So 3 you push 3, pop 3, after that you push 2 and then you pop 2. So that's why if you push a vertex U and then pop it out before you push V, then the interval corresponding to this will be in two disjoint intervals, and it's easy to see from the diagram that so these two nodes in the BFS tree will be in two different subtrees. Okay. In the other case is that one interval is inside the interval corresponding to V is inside the interval corresponding to U. For example, the interval corresponding to 0 is 1, 10, which is a bigger interval. The interval corresponding to any other node is inside this, right? So if two intervals, one is inside the other one, and so that means that one is the ancestor of the other one. Right, so if so in the examples that we started with, if this is U and this is V, then the interval corresponding to V is sitting inside the interval corresponding to U. So U has to be ancestor of V in the DFS tree. Okay, so when I give you two vertices in the BFS tree, either one is the ancestor of the other one, or they are in two different subtrees. Right, so either they are one is ancestor of the other one, or they are not. One is not the ancestor of the other one. That means that two nodes are in two different subtrees. If one is an ancestor of the other one, it's easy to see that one of the interval is sitting inside the other interval, ancestor's interval. And if two nodes are in the two different subtrees, then the interval corresponding to that those two intervals will be disjoint interval. So given any two nodes. So what can only happen is that two intervals are disjoint, or one interval should be sitting inside the other interval. So it cannot happen that one interval partially overlaps with the other interval. So that's precisely what this slide is trying to say. So let's try to write this condition in a slightly different way. So let's U and V be two nodes such that the finish time of U is smaller than the finish time of V, right? So the V always finishes after U is finished, right? So one of the following two should happen. So U is pushed first and U finishes first, and then V V starts and V finishes. That means that these two intervals are disjoint. These two are two different. These two nodes are there in two different subtrees of the BFS tree. Since U has to finish first, so you started with U, then you pushed U, then you popped U, and then you pop v. So this should happen. So in this case, what will happen is that the interval u is sitting inside the interval v, right? So the v is an ancestor of the vertex u in the DFS tree. So the earlier slide was based on the discovery time, so this is just based on the finish times. So one of the two things should happen. Let me ask you a question now. So what happens if there is an edge from u to v, right? So if so what is given to us, there is an edge u to v, and we are also given that finish time of v is greater than the finish time of u. In other words, there is an edge in the graph such that the finish time of v is greater than the finish time of u. In this case, so what should happen? So the claim is that only this is possible. This is not possible in this case, because if you start with the vertex, if you push the vertex u, then you cannot, so when you look at the adjacent vertices of u, v will be there. So you will end up pushing v. Once you push u, you will also end up pushing v into the stack, because u comma v is an edge. So you have to, so this is not possible, right? So if you push u and then you have to push v, if you push v, then you have to pop v out. So if you end up popping v out, then the finish time of v is going to be smaller than the finish time of u, right? So this is not possible. So if there is an edge from u to v, I repeat, if you if this is possible, then you started discovering u. Since there is an edge from u to v, before you finish u, you should finish v. If you finish v before you finish u, then the discovery time of v cannot be greater than the finish time of u. Okay, so the only possibility is this. So what should have happened is that there is a you started with v, then you visited u, then you finish visiting u, then at some point of time there is an edge from u back to v, but the v is already marked true, you do nothing, right? So what we are saying is that if you come across two edges, one edge u comma v, such that the endpoint of the vertex v is greater than the finish time of the starting point of the edge, right? Then the vertex u that have should be the vertex v should be the ancestor of the vertex u. In other words, the interval corresponding to u should be sitting inside the interval corresponding to u. This can be written as an important theorem. So the theorem says that if u comma v is an edge in the graph such that the finish time of v is greater than the finish time of u, then there must be a path in the opposite direction, right? So in other words, opposite direction in the sense that there should be a path in the graph from v to u. In other words, in the DFS tree, v is an ancestor of u. That means that you there should be, if you follow the path of u pi function of u, you should be able to reach v. In other words, in the actual graph there is a path from v to u. So let me repeat. So what we did is that we take a graph, applied DFS on it, computed the finish times of all the vertices, and then we came across an edge u comma v such that this is an edge in the graph such that the finish time of v is greater than the finish time of u. In this case, what should happen is that we just proved that the interval corresponding to u should be sitting inside the interval corresponding to v. In other words, v is an ancestor of u in the DFS tree. That means that if you follow the path pi function from u, you should be able to reach the vertex v. In other words, in the actual graph there is a path from the vertex v to u. This theorem can be generalized to an edge. Instead of an edge, you can take a path from u to v. If there is a path from u to v in the graph such that the finish time of u is smaller than or equal to finish time of v, then there must be a path in the graph from v to u. In other words, instead of the only difference between the theorem 1 and 2 is that if there is a path from u to v in the graph and the finish time of v is greater than u, then the interval corresponding to u should be sitting inside the interval corresponding to v, because once we reach u, so there is a path to v, right? So if you u was visited before you visit v, then from you can go to v through this path. Then from v, then you will finish v before you finish u, right? That's not possible. So you should have visited v, and then you follow the path and got the vertex u, and there may be a path from u to v in the graph, right? So this is an important theorem, which is just an extension of the previous theorem. If there is a path from u to v and the finish time of v is greater than the finish time of u, then there must be a path from v to u. That means that v is an ancestor of the vertex u in the DFS tree. You pushed v, then you pushed u, then you popped u, then you popped v out of the stack, right? So we will use these two theorems in the future classes. Just to quickly summarize, so what we have noticed is that if you are given any two nodes in the graph, so if you look at them in the DFS tree, either one is the ancestor of the other one, or these two nodes are in the two different subtrees. If the nodes are in two different subtrees, the intervals corresponding to them will be disjoint. And if one is an ancestor of other node in the VFS tree, then the one interval is inside the interval corresponding to its ancestor. We use this fact to mainly prove two theorems. The one theorem is that after you apply the DFS, if you come across any edge u comma v, where the finish time of the end vertex, that is v, is greater than the finish time of the starting vertex, that is u, then there must be a path in the graph from v to u. This can be generalized to second important theorem, which says that if there is a path from u to v and the finish time of the endpoint, that is v, is greater than the finish time of u, then there must be a path from v to u in the graph. We will use these two theorems in the future classes when we study some important applications of the DFS algorithm.